Good morning, everybody. This is Lost Soul Travels, Geo, to most of you. As you know, most of you know, I was a freight expediter, expediting freight in my van. Came home in November to help my wife get ready for her hip replacement surgery. Came home the beginning of November, and November 20th, she had her hip replaced. Got home, recovery was going well, and the therapist was in one day, and I was in the other room, and I heard Bonnie say, "I feel like I'm dizzy. I feel like I'm going to pass out." And the next thing I know, the therapist yelled, "George, get in here." And when I ran into the living room, Bonnie was in a full seizure. The therapist proceeded to tell me what it would look like as she came out of the seizure. She was asking me had she ever had any kind of epileptic seizures or anything before, and which she hadn't. And she started coming out of the seizure. She opened her eyes. She looked at me. She looked at the therapist. She took her hands and tried to push up on the seat a little bit to raise up. And the therapist asked her, "Bonnie, can you breathe through your nose?" And Bonnie, she started breathing through her nose. At that point, I ran in the other room to get my phone to call 911, call an ambulance. Before I could get back into the living room, the therapist yelled again, "George, get in here quick. We got to get her on the floor. She quit breathing." And folks, by the time we got her on the floor, I knew she was gone. And the therapist started administering CPR, and I was calling the ambulance, and it seemed like forever for him to get here. And they finally got here, and they worked on her for a half an hour, and never once did she. They kept her heart beating through CPR and that, but never once did she breathe. And I knew after the therapist had been working on her for 15 minutes, it seemed like it was 15 or 20 minutes before the ambulance got here, I knew that at that point she was definitely gone, because without oxygen for 15 minutes, yeah, so it's the hardest day of my life. So we got her up to the hospital, and within, I don't know, probably half an hour, 45 minutes from the time we got to the hospital, they came out and told me she was gone, which I already knew. Anyway, through all that, and we're right at 2 months now. I would always, when I was expediting, always send her pictures from the road and where I was at, and we would talk every day. And her surgery was going to be helping her get prepared to retire in a couple of years. And then we were going to go out and tour the country and stop at places that I'd seen. And it's not going to happen now. I decided to retire. And with my retirement, going to take the van I was using for expediting and going to convert it into an RV or a camper or whatever you want to call it. And Lord willing, May 2nd, I'm going to hit the road, and I'm going to take up Bonnie's ashes with me. And all the places, relatives, friends, new friends that I meet along the way. My plan is to ask each one of them to just film a few minutes with me and spread some of Bonnie's ashes wherever that place is. and I will try to best I can to document it and get it up on video. I know it's not for everybody, and that's fine, but I want some kind of documentation that of what I'm doing. Folks, if you've never spread a loved one's ashes, I highly recommend it. It's very therapeutic. There's something about knowing that there's ashes in the wind. I told Bonnie, we often had this conversation, that if I went first, I wanted my ashes spread down the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is one of the places that I'm going to spread her ashes. But not just there. If the Lord gives me breath all over this country, I hope to spread her ashes and to share the joy that she was to me for over 40 years. February 9th would have been our 40th wedding anniversary. And it's still going to be our 40th wedding anniversary. I just won't have her here physically. So I don't mean to get teared up and all emotional on this video, but I just wanted to share what happened and what's causing me to I love the van, living in a van as far as expediting, and I'm not going to expedite freight. I'm going to expedite Bonnie's ashes. And I have the next year planned out. If, like I said, if Lord gives me breath, plan on making a southern tour the beginning in May, and then coming back home, and then me and the boys are going to North Carolina. Come back from North Carolina, I plan to go to Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin, all up in the Midwest, and see friends and family up there. Come back home, then the end of October, go out to Arizona. There's a group that has a van build out in Arizona. Plan on going to the van build and maybe getting solar put on the van. And just I don't have any special talents as far as building anything, but just being a gopher and just helping any way I can out there, and maybe there'll be somebody out there that needs some financial assistance so they can live better, and maybe we can do that. So that's a whole month of November. Then I plan on coming back home for Christmas, and then once Christmas is over and the New Year's is over, going right back out to Arizona for the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, the RTR, out in Quartzsite. So that's kind of how I started with all this, and so I know it's video's been all over the map, but this is my story, and I invite you all to come along for laughs, tears, a lot of mischief, and a little tomfoolery maybe. Anyway, folks, be kind. Be nice. That's the thing that I heard Bonnie say to me after she passed away. Be nice. Be nice to one another. Go make a memory. Because you never know, folks, when you too are going to be dust.